Good afternoon, everyone. Order. Good afternoon, everyone. Call to order the council work session for March 7th. We have everyone present. Mark is on his way. Go down the agenda for Thursday. We have the call to order, roll call, and invocation by Pastor Justin McPeak. Was the pledge of allegiance by our Girl Scout Troop 419. And we'll go to item 1, Ms. Messmer, acceptance of the agenda. We'll do awards and presentations. I think we have a lot of awards to give out. Am I right here?
Just a proclamation.
Just
Have one proclamation.
one proclamation, okay. All right, and then we'll go to city manager report, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. Of course, the Employee Service Awards annual banquet is 11:30 on Thursday over at the Ethelberger Center. Yeah, that's right. So, had to think between the two of them there for a second. So please, you're all invited to attend. It's a well-attended function, and everybody has a lot of fun, and of course, good food to eat as well. We're tracking the food tax bill in the legislature. It's made it through one house, hasn't made it through the second one yet. We're anticipating that it will, and certainly then it'll be up to the governor as to whether or not that is signed or not. So far, all the bills that have made it through, she has been vetoing. Of course, that's of great interest to us since we'll be losing about over $3 million in general fund revenue if that makes it through. So that's of prime concern to us. And we'll have a normal projects report Thursday. Just to let you know, the RFP has been drafted and sent out to Federal Transit Administration for transit driver services. And after their review, we'll be able to post that. And that's all I have right now. Thank you, Mayor McCall.
Sir, we'll proceed on to the item number 2. Yes. Does council have any questions of the city manager? Questions, comments? All right. Then we'll proceed to item number 2. No discussion on item number 2. All right, and then we go to public hearings. Mr. McLaughlin, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So the purpose of the public hearing on Thursday is to receive input on proposed projects and activities for the use of community development block grant funding, which was announced to be just over $250,000 for the upcoming program year. The CDBG program provides annual grants on a formula basis to strengthen and revitalize neighborhoods through housing rehabilitation, infrastructure improvements, and the provision of public services. Each activity must qualify as meeting one of 3 national objectives. One, which is most relied upon, benefiting low to moderate income persons, either on an area-wide or a limited clientele basis. Number 2 is preventing or eliminating areas of slum and blight. And number 3 is meeting an urgent community development need. Usually that's connected with a natural or man-made disaster. So we don't use that, fortunately, ever. We follow a routine application process that begins with a broad distribution of the notice of funding availability, followed by a pre-application meeting where we provide feedback on proposed projects and programs and respond to questions. Applicants will present their proposals to you on Thursday, and what we're seeking is preliminary feedback and guidance on how the funding should be distributed. Staff will use that information to draft the annual action plan, which will be presented to you at your first meeting in April. That will be put out once we have a consensus for a 30-day public comment period. The final draft will come back to you in May. It will then be submitted to HUD. They have a 45-day review period, and usually by the end of the summer, early fall, we receive the grant, and we can begin the award process. So just as a reminder, HUD restricts how funding can be used. There's a 15% cap on public services. This year, that equates to about $37,500. There's a 20% cap on the use of administration. which equates to about $50,000. We're entering our final year of the 5-year consolidated plan, which was amended 3 times during the pandemic to incorporate CARES Act funding. This document will need to be reviewed and updated by this time next year to reestablish goals and strategies for community development block grant funds for the next 5 years, which is why we're requesting administration funds with this year's budget. Over the past 4 program years, the bulk of the funds have gone towards public infrastructure and facility projects, followed by the provision of public services, housing rehabilitation, and small business assistance during the pandemic. Less than 1% has gone towards administration. 3 applications were received by last Friday's deadline. They will each have about 10 minutes to present their proposals and to respond to any questions by the council. In terms of the city project, we're recommending that next year's allocation be used to install fire hydrants in the Montebello neighborhood, which was annexed into the city in 2010. This is one of the target areas for CDBG investment. Over 72% of the residents qualify as low to moderate income, according to the most recent census estimate. According to the city's fire marshal, 10 to 14 fire hydrants strategically spaced within the subdivision is urgently needed and will significantly reduce the risk of fire loss due to a fire within this area. It should also help to lower property insurance premiums. In terms of outside agency requests, the United Way is seeking funds for rent and utility payment assistance, hotel, motel vouchers for homeless individuals, food distribution, books for first grade students at Carmichael Elementary, and employment assistance services. The Cochise Family Advocacy Center is requesting funds for providing trauma-focused services to victims of violent crimes. And the Southern Arizona Legal Aid Organization is requesting funds for outreach and education on available free civil legal services to low-income residents within the community. All 3 fulfill CDBG eligibility criteria. I think you'll deem them to be worthy requests. We do suggest that due to the administrative work involved, that you limit the number of outside agency requests to 1, potentially 2 applications. You could look through the line items within the United Way request, who's asking for the full amount if you wanted to try to fund another nonprofit, or, there's just, I encourage you to wait and hear the presentations and ask your questions, and then make a decision on how the public services dollars should be allocated.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments?
And they're gonna be here on Thursday night, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I have.
Let's see.
And it might just be me. Was there more to Lori's place, the advocacy packet for Lori's
don't
place?
see
Or
it.
was it just those?
I don't think it was.
It was provided late with the agenda. Maria, did those go out on Friday?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what was submitted and should be included in your packet
Does
is
anybody
a
have more than 2
application.
pages?
I don't even,
I have, section 2A and.
Okay. It looked like it was partially filled out. And it's not uncommon with these smaller nonprofits to struggle with the application requirements. So, I mean, we can, if it's desirable from the council to consider funding their, we can work with them on the remaining sections and see if they can meet those requirements.
Yes, sir. Any other questions, comments?
For the, I do have another one. For the fire hydrants that we need, we have to tear up the road to get those in under the,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there
So
was
we have
sidewalk.
the water utility maps, and we had thought that that wouldn't be necessary, but we're doing streetlights in that same neighborhood, and it does look like we're going to have to trench and patch a section of road, which will add about $2,000 to the cost of each hydrant.
Less than I thought it would be. Just because of the way things have, I think that's it for right now. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Proceed on to new business. Ms. Barbara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, under your current strategic leadership plan, you've had a goal to look at the reinvigoration and reevaluation of non-regulatory commissions. So after a year and a half of looking at this and 3 different council work sessions in September, November, and most recently in February, what came out of that discussion and looking at various options were 3 of the agenda items you have on here tonight. And I'll go over each of them specifically when it's their turn, but overall, the consensus that staff took coming out of those work sessions were to create several new council advisory commissions, which focused on general plan elements, to reestablish as council advisory commissions 2 commissions that would maintain the same focus area, and then finally to dissolve the current the non-regulatory commissions, which currently advise departments and are appointed by the city manager. That is your first item here tonight. It seemed to make the most sense to dissolve all the non-regulatory commissions first before you go on and create new commissions and then reestablish the 2 commissions whose focus isn't changing. The new commissions that would be established would go back to advising council and being appointed by council. So in this first item, the non-regulatory commissions that would be dissolving would be the Airport Commission, Arts and Humanities Commission, Commission on Disability Issues, Commission on Cultural Diversity, the Economic Development Commission, Environmental Affairs Commission, Library Advisory Commission, Tourism Commission, West End Commission, and the Youth Commission. Be happy to answer any questions on this particular item or items that come up in the next 2 items.
Questions?
That come up in the next 2 items.
Questions, comments on dissolving? Yes,
Now,
sir.
with respect to dissolving the non-regulatory commissions, are we going to assume that the city council will reappoint those members that are already there?
Mayor McCaw, Councilmember Johnson. So staff did not want to assume that council was going to approve each of these 3 actions tonight. So what will come next, if you do approve these 3 actions, our staff will sit down and meet in the next week and discuss the logistics of how to transition these commissions back to council advisory commissions, and then bring the council handbook and the commission handbook to your next work session on the 21st, and discuss those details. But at this point, I would foresee that we would ask the existing commissioners if they would like to be on the newly created commissions, assuming you move forward with that action, and find out who's still interested and bring those back to you then for appointment.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Comments? Yes, ma'am.
Actually, it's more for Greg. Was there discussion about Economic Development Commission not wanting, they wanted to stay as is, right? Because as the way it's written, they would become a council advisory commission.
Right. That's what they want. They don't want the tourism underneath them.
Right. So we're not doing that. Also, that's
Maybe
another
Chuck
point.
can help us out on that one,
But
because that's kind of a unique one that we just.
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, Tony came and spoke with me after your last meeting with regards to the Economic Development Commission and their desires moving forward in terms of how they operate. And he had the impression from that meeting that the Economic Development Commission members would not want to be formalized as a city council commission, that they really wanted to their status to stay the same as they were. Some of them mentioned potential conflicts they might have, in their current jobs with making formal recommendations to the council. So they actually preferred to stay as they are, continue to operate as they are. So if the council wants to do that with the Economic Development Commission, and we'll defer to Mr. Johnson's, opinion on this as well, but we would just simply remove them from this action for Thursday and then move them in the category of staying as they are.
they wouldn't need to change at all. If council desires to make that change, we'll just remove them from this item, and then nothing would change from their current status.
Mr. Johnson, how would you like to proceed?
Well, I would prefer that they would be an advisory commission to the council. However, with the current members, and I've met with the members, I would defer to them in their respective roles on that commission. So I would just go along with their wishes with respect to that. I think that's the wisest thing to do, because we have some very, very influential people in our city that are members of that commission, and I would just as soon defer to them under the circumstances.
And also very willing to serve
Yeah.
under their current conditions.
All right. Yes, sir. Any other questions, comments? Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, go ahead, Mark.
And then, so my question is, so then, once the West End Commission is dissolved, then it becomes the Neighborhood Commission, or? I'm
Mayor,
not-
members of council, I will address that in the next item.
Okay, sorry.
Speaking of, yes, ma'am, go
Okay,
ahead.
just want to check in with Councilmember Marta Mesmer. You're okay with Tourism Commission not being a part of this?
No.
Because I know
oh,
you
was
felt
it- do we have
strongly
to
about.
Okay, then.
Well, the first one is creating the council advisory commissions.
The first one's getting rid of them all.
Yeah, first one's.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Number one on the on the recommendation.
So if we want to speak about tourism, you'll speak about that next
Yeah, that's
time?
item 5.
Okay,
Well, and yeah, the item before you right now is dissolving all the
Yeah,
non-regulatory.
Item
I'm sorry.
4.
All right,
Right.
thank you.
So now we're going to item 5. Back to you.
Okay.
Ms. Yarber.
Mayor and council, and thank you for your patience as we have to work through 3 separate agenda items for this issue. So what your next item will do would then create as new city council advisory commissions, the Transportation Commission, Neighborhoods Commission, Economic Development Commission, we'll strike that one.
Yep.
Environmental Stewardship Commission, and the Arts and Humanities and Cultural Diversity Commission, where the Economic Development Commission would retain its current focus, but focus on the general plan elements for economic vitality. Transportation would include the existing Airport Commission, as well as focusing on streets, bicycling, and pedestrian and transit, and would focus on the connectivity general plan element. The Neighborhoods Commission would include the current West End Commission. They would focus on general plan elements, community preservation and revitalization. Environmental Affairs Commission would become the Environmental Stewardship Commission, focusing on environmental sustainability. The existing Parks and Recreation Commission, which is not included in this action because they are already a City Council Advisory Commission, but just for clarity, would focus on public facilities and services general plan element, and then the existing Arts and Humanities, Cultural Diversity, and Library Commissions would become the Arts, Humanities, and Cultural Diversity Commission, focusing on public facilities and services. Their missions would, and one of the things that was heard throughout this process was the need for more focus and directed missions for the commissions, and so the recommended missions for the new commissions would be to make recommendations to council on the general plan process, recommendations to council on strategic planning goals and initiatives, recommendations to council on major projects or initiatives related to the commissions, conducting research on proposals relevant to the commission's focus areas, and to receive staff updates on progress regarding relevant general plan and strategic plan goals. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so I know that it was discussed at the last working session about the tourism, and I've been to several events or meetings since then, and at every single one of those functions, it was mentioned about tourism, about advertising our city in different manners. So I still would like that to be added to the commission, and I am willing if I get appointed. But I just think that wherever it would go, we still need it. That is important to the city, and for us to, make sure that the citizens are, have the word on how we advertise and stuff like, and, you know, for items and where.
So you want it as a separate,
Well, wherever it would go, wherever, you know, that the group chooses to put it, but I don't think we should get rid of it, is my
Okay.
point.
got it.
Sorry, if it wasn't clear.
Other comments?
I think it would have to be on its own since
Yeah.
the other commissions didn't seem
I got
interested.
some. I got
Go
some.
ahead. Go ahead,
All right,
yes,
so
sir.
quick questions. Number of constituents on each commission? How many are we proposing? How many are we looking at? Are we gonna approve these first and then come back with our recommendations on what we should do for numbers and stuff like that?
Mayor McCaw and members of council, Councilmember Benning, so our current plan was, there are 5 commissioners right now. The council advisory commissions remained at 7, I believe. So we're going to look at how many are actually on each commission, and how many would then, nobody's going to be invited to leave a commission, so they would all, when they combine, it'd be all existing members. We're going to see how many we had before we made the recommendation on keeping it at 5 or going back to 7.
Okay, and the only reason I asked one like transportation, I'm sure you're gonna have airport commissioners that doesn't wanna be part of, et cetera, but like for the neighborhood commission, if we're including the rest of Sierra Vista in that, I think we need to broaden the members, but I don't wanna kick no one off that's been working hard and being part of the West End Commission. But also, if someone's on the east end of town or north end of town or on the skirts of the town, I don't wanna say, hey, you can't be on there because you're not in the West End. So I want to make sure we have enough room for all parties interested without taking from parties that's been doing that certain mission. So that's my only concern is if we say transportation's 5, airport commission brings 5 people over, their primary focus is the airport. So are we going to get anything else outside of their realm or knowledge area if we can't have other people come in as voting members? So that's the only thing that worries me on those aspects.
Mr. Tuchet.
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, Councilmember Benning, obviously before we made this change, we had 7 members, and, you know, I think part of this discussion and this process, you know, we've had trouble filling commission seats. You know, it could be because of the change, or it could be because of the pandemic, or whatever reasons. So I would hope personally that we could go back to 7. Now, we did have a mechanism prior to this where we had non-voting membership also allowed as well if people wanted to participate on those commissions. So if we were able to expand to 7 and had the non-voting component, I think that would meet, you know, what you're trying to get at in terms of adding more people, you know, to the mix.
Then, with questions to the agenda, can non-voting members, I guess Jill maybe, can non-voting members have discussion and discuss during the meetings?
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
I
Non-voting
wanna
members
make sure
just
that everyone's gonna
cannot
have an
vote and
input.
don't count towards a quorum.
Okay,
That's all.
good. Thank you.
One quick, yes, sir.
Just one quick one. If we could go back to item 4,
Yes, sir.
as far as striking the Economic Development Commission from that motion? Okay,
Mr. Johnson,
I just
I'll
want to make
just-
sure it is. Okay,
And
thank
I
you.
would update the background too, for both of them. The
I'll
background has
make all the
this.
changes.
Thank you.
All right, any more comments, discussion on item number 5? Proceeding to item number 6, Ms. Garber.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So this would be your final commission-related item. And so there were 2 existing department advisory commissions that didn't fit neatly into or with any of the proposed newly created commissions, and that was the Commission on Disability Issues and the Youth Commission. And so the recommendation on those is just to simply recreate them as council advisory commissions as is, not being combined or refocused in any way. And so this final item would do just that and recreate them as, or reestablish them as council advisory commissions.
Thank you, ma'am. Comments?
Is Cody still meeting at all?
Yes.
Comments? Youth Commission? Mark, good? You good with that? All right. Thank you, ma'am. Proceed to item number 7, Ms. Passard.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this agenda item will authorize staff to apply for an Environmental Water Resources Projects Grant through the Bureau of Reclamation. It is important to note that this item is for the application only. Funding is not guaranteed, and the grant process is expected to be highly competitive, as all grants lately have been. If the application is successful, an additional action would likely be required to accept the grant. City is applying for this grant on behalf of the Cochise Conservation and Recharge Network, and the city was selected as the lead agency due to the grant requirements. The grant requires Tier 1 applicants to have water or power delivery authority, and the city has water delivery authority. The grant also requires the applicant to be registered as a potential recipient on federal websites, and due to the city's application history and success with other grants, staff already has the required registration. The Riverstone project is one of several recharge projects implemented or planned by the Cochise Conservation and Recharge Network. When full build-out is achieved, the projects will help to sustain the riparian environment along the San Pedro Riparian National Conservation Area, or SPRNCA. The Riverstone project was recently able to obtain design funding through the Sentinel Landscapes Readiness and an Environmental Protection Integration Challenge Program, REPI Challenge, and the current grant application would be for construction funding. Per the terms of the grant, total project costs cannot exceed $6 million, with the required match from partner agencies of 25% to 50%. Based on the application criteria, staff believes the project will qualify for the lower 25% match. In addition, the REPI Challenge Award of $925,000, which I already referenced, and in-kind contributions can be used towards the match. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Sharon. It can't exceed 6 million, because that was one of my questions. What's the total cost of construction? Is it going to exceed 6?
No, that
I
is
feel
the
like it just
absolute,
keeps-
that is the absolute cap for this grant. Projects with a project cost of above $6 million are not eligible for this grant.
The 925,000 that was received through REPI, is that in addition to the one that was awarded for the Coyote Wash? Is this a separate?
Coyote Wash was the first REPI grant.
That was last
award.
year, right?
And this
Mr.
one-
Mayor, members of council, so the Fort Huachuca Sentinel Landscape has actually been successful on REPI Challenge 2 years in a row. First year was Coyote Wash project. We just received notice within the last month that we were successful for the Riverstone project as well.
Oh, great, okay. Because we just received notice, I feel like, of the Coyote Wash one, so
Wasn't long.
that's good news. I think that's it. Thank you.
Sir?
Go ahead. Just quick, so I see the 6 million on the top end, right? With the required match of $1.5 million for that one. Now you said it's probably gonna be lower than that, and our match is looking more like estimated, what? Because we can use the 925 towards that.
Yes.
Grant, right?
That's correct. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez. So the 1.5 million is the estimated match based on the maximum project cost of $6 million. And we're going based on the 25%, which we believe we will qualify for. We have been told that REPI Challenge, this is somewhat of an unusual situation, and the feds are still trying to figure it out. The fact that REPI Challenge money can be used as a match on a federal project. That is a highly unusual situation.
Okay.
A quick question, especially if we do get to that 3 million point. Who makes up the CCRN and what's their percentage?
So the Cochise Conservation Recharge Network has a variety of signatories, City of Sierra Vista, Cochise County, City of Bisbee, Fort Huachuca,
BLM.
BLM.
yeah,
And
Bureau.
the NRCD.
Yeah. So the likely contributions towards this project would obviously be the ones that it would most directly,
Benefit.
benefit. I wouldn't think the city of Bisbee would be a primary contribution towards this. So we would then be going to our partners and saying, this is what we have available after we know the total project cost. This is what we have available. This is the gap in funding. How do we make up that difference? And we would be working with our partners on that.
Got it.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Move forward. Then we have the call to the public, comments and requests from the council, and adjournment. Next item B.
Wait, quick.
Yep. Next item B, we call Mr. Chris Clausen, Professional Firefighter Union President. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, for allowing us to be here, and city staff to presentation on Meet and Confer. Just a little bio on myself. Been a firefighter for 14 years, been with the city for 12 years. I don't know if you can hear me all or not. Or I can speak louder, I don't have a problem doing that. 9 years as our president of the Professional Firefighters of Sierra Vista. Within our group, we have 48 members, all the way from the deputy chief, all the way down to our first-year firefighters. We have members within the civilian EMS division also. Another part I wanted to talk was I've been on the employee council for 5 years, from 2013 to 2018. And I just wanted to make a point that this is no way in that the firefighters or any of us are upset with our fire administration or the city administration. This is not what we're here for, is to say we're upset with anything. We're just looking at a new way. I shouldn't say a new way, a common way within the state to do some communication and collaboration with all of you, actually, and with our staff, fire staff. So with that being said, Meet and Confer is what we're here to present, actually. Brian Jeffries. I just wanted to make a couple points to that. It allows our employees to be a part of the policymaking procedure. If you've ever met any of our firefighters, we're pretty straightforward and involved individuals within the community and within the fire department, within the city itself. It gives us a little more investment into our own jobs within the fire department and within the city. And in the long-term goal of it and the look of it, it kind of gives us a playbook to go forward. And when I'm gone and you're gone, the fire chief's gone or the mayor's gone, there'll be something established for our future firefighters to have a playbook that there won't be any big surprises that come up that some things are taken away or some things are given or not. So that's what we're just really looking for, is that opportunity to communicate and collaborate. As you could tell, it's pretty important to a lot of us, all of us. And I just wanted to speak upon the employee council. I know that's a part of the process here within the city. And like I said, I was on that from 2013 to 2018. And I was trying to do some research on the last meeting minutes that I found throughout my emails in 2018. And there hasn't been any meetings that I know about since then. That was when the personnel rules and regs were revamped. And to speak upon the employee council, I think it's a good idea. It's really difficult to navigate through as a representative for one department. So there's 7 different departments within that employee council. And what I learned, or what I saw when I was there, was I was there for 5 years. Happy to do it. What I saw from some of the other departments is that their representatives changed quite frequently. So we're always trying to get the other new representatives that came in up to speed on what topics we're working on. And I also noticed, with that being said, that the chairman and the secretary of that group was also changing. So it was constantly trying to educate, come to a consensus on what topics we want to work on. So it was very difficult to move anything forward. And a lot of times there was no time frames or anything follow through. If we would bring topics up, we would typically get told, we'll get looked at, no time, we'll get back to you in 2 months, 6 months, next week. It was a lot of, where are we at on this topic, and we don't know where we're going. So it was very difficult to operate or be a part of that group. So this process that we're looking at is almost curtailed to our area, the fire department, the employees within the fire department. So that's why we're pursuing meet and confer. That's the gist of it. It's nothing adversarial. We just want to have our special, I wouldn't say our special needs, but we're a special group. We work different hours, longer hours. We do different things, and we're just trying to get that kind of stuff solidified with all of you and move forward. It's a very common practice throughout the state. Yeah, I think it's time to change. Change is difficult, and this would be a big change. Maybe it'll open up the door for other departments to pursue this. I hope it does. Gets our people and the fire department more involved. Maybe it will in the other departments, get them more involved in their day-to-day jobs and the policy making. And you'll see, I'm sure, I know we will see our future leaders come out of this meet and confer process. Let's see. And I know some of the other things that I've heard is what it will cost. And I'm not exactly the expert on meet and confer. I've been studying this a long time. Like I said, been in our president for 9 years. That's why Brian Jeffries is here, to get into all the details of what it is, what it isn't, how it can help, any positives or negatives or anything like that. I'm just trying to go through my notes. With that being said, I'd like to introduce Brian Jeffries. He's newly retired from Mesa Fire, was there, firefighter for 30 years, past president of the Professional Firefighters of Arizona for over 20 years. He's assisted with 33 different organizations in this process to have it implemented and work with them to get them going into the future. He's served as a city council member in the city of Phoenix, was the mayor's chief of staff there. Led efforts to reform public safety pension. He was here about 10 years ago to talk about all the changes that were going on about 10 years ago, all the reform that brought Tier 3 into fruition. And actually, with the process that we're looking at, has saved cities millions of dollars from just letting the communication and collaboration take place within that department of that city. So I don't know if I have anything else I could probably set up here all day and talk about Brian, but Brian Jeffries.
Welcome, sir.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon. Glad to be here. All right, let me get this thing going here. Slideshow. Great. Well, thank you, Chris, for such a great presentation, and I'm really glad to be here with you all. As Chris mentioned, the last time I was here, I was talking about pension reform, and boy, was that a blast. There's a couple years of my life I'll never get back, but I think one important point about that is it was a profound example of what Chris is talking about, is how getting leaders, getting organizations together to work together and collaborate. We saved citizens $1.5 billion in that process, and that didn't come from one person. That came from a variety of organizations working together, including the Firefighters Association, the police officers, the Arizona League of Cities and Towns, the Reason Foundation. I mean, I could go down the list. But I think that really bodes to the essence of what we're going to talk about today, and that is bringing stakeholders together to create a better organization. And Meet and Confer does that. As Chris mentioned, I've been involved with now 33 different government organizations in the state of Arizona, bringing Meet and Confer to fruition, and it's produced some amazing results. So I'm here to get into a lot of the details of sort of how it works and how you might consider bringing it to the fore. And at any time, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much. So first of all, like Chris mentioned, it's sort of an evolution of when you have an organized employee group and how they can improve their communications with their employers. What's interesting about Meet and Confer is all the principles of Meet and Confer were designed right here in Arizona. They were all designed here by stakeholders trying to solve problems. This isn't something we borrowed from some other place. We built it right here in Arizona. We're quite proud of that. And it's developed over decades now. Meet and Confer has been used by government organizations throughout Arizona for 40 years, so it's nothing new, okay? The basic tenets, Chris touched on it, are communication, accountability, and I'll add government transparency. That's a part of it that people don't often think about, and I'll get more into that in just a moment. So when did it begin? It really started back in the 60s and 70s. And you had several government organizations here in the state of Arizona that were going through some significant strife, okay? Now think about the politics going on back in the 60s and 70s, you know. A lot of things going on back then, and but you had a lot of big problems with between our firefighters and some of the managers. One of the famous quotes in the Arizona Republic at the time by the city manager of Phoenix was, I don't need to listen to those guys. I can buy firefighters like I buy pencils and floor tiles. You can imagine how that felt in fire stations when it comes to collaboration and communication. And so where that led to was the Phoenix firefighters almost went on strike during that time frame. The Tucson firefighters did go on strike during that time frame. And so everybody got together and realized we can't have this. You know, the firefighters certainly didn't want to do that, but they felt like they weren't being listened to. And management couldn't have that. More importantly, the community couldn't have that, because we are here, we swear an oath to take care of our citizens 24/7, no matter what. So we need a solution, okay? And a lot of experts got together, a lot of stakeholders got together. They said, what can we come up with that will work in government, not necessarily the private sector, but in government, to bring these people together to try to form solutions. And that's when Meet and Confer was born, is to try to solve these issues. By the way, I forgot to mention, there was a lot of issues with our school districts back then as well. Same type of problems they were having. And so the only solution anyone normally knew of in those days that was developed way back like in the 20s and 30s was collective bargaining, and that was traditionally used in the private sector, okay? And there were some challenges with that. Number one, you often had, if you think back through our history, you had, you know, employers and employee unions going at one another, and they had sort of weapons. It was sort of an adversarial style of dealing with one another. The employees could go on strike, okay? The employers could lock the doors and say, don't come back. And clearly, in government, in public service, these are not the type of tools that we want in any of our toolboxes. And not to mention that there's a tenet that's important in government, and I think you'll agree, it's so important, it was put right into our state constitution. And that is simply that a local government like yourselves should not abdicate your decision-making to a third party, to a judge, to an arbitrator. In collective bargaining, that's what happens. When there's not an agreement, it does go to an arbitrator or a judge. That's not good either. You all were elected to make decisions for your constituents. You should be making those decisions. And the developers of this great state of ours saw that as well, and they put it right into our Constitution, which is why traditional collective bargaining is illegal in the state of Arizona. It doesn't say collective bargaining is illegal, but it says any process that abdicates your decision-making is illegal, okay? And so they're like, well, that doesn't work. Plus, we don't think this adversarial style and this approach is conducive to effective public employee-employer relations. So they said, well, let's come up with something a little different. So they came up with Meet and Confer. Meet and Confer, first of all, is based on what's known as an interest-based style of working together. It's not like you're trying to buy a car and I'm trying to sell it to you for $100,000, you want to buy it for $20,000, and I'm holding, you know, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to charge you for the window tint, and you're not going to tell me what, you know, it's not that type of style. It's people sitting down and saying, what are the issues? What can we talk about? How can we collaborate and come to some common ground and some solutions? Okay, and number two, the end result of Meet and Confer, the agreement, is a memorandum of understanding. Now, under the law, all that is a handshake. It's a gentle person's agreement. It's not enforceable by courts. This is never going to go to court. You don't need lawyers to do it. It is a memorandum of understanding, and you guys approve lots of MOUs throughout all of your service. So it's just a general MOU, which, by the way, has all of its final decision-making power with all of you. It ends with you. You guys get to make the decision. You can accept, reject, modify any terms of the agreement, and if necessary, change those. And let's look at an economic crisis, for example. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes we have to make changes. That is common, and it's easily accommodated by Meet and Confer. Again, we talk a little bit about this interest-based process. We call it a partnership style of negotiating. We look for mutual understanding. We focus on goals. What are the concerns of all parties? Labor and management list and explain their needs. The ensuing discussion revolves around ways to meet those needs. It's very positive, imparts a more congenial atmosphere. And today, in the modern world, many agreements are done this very way. All parties are expected to work together. And on occasion, this rarely happens in the state of Arizona, I can tell you that much. I've been involved for 30 years, and I can probably count on one hand how many times anything has ever actually gone to impasse. But in case there are issues that do, where there is an impasse, it comes to you all for a final decision. And what's nice, and from the firefighters' point of view, is that they get to actually come up here and talk and give you a presentation on how it works. In today's world, they don't really get that opportunity very often. You're handed this budget, all these books that you get, and all this stuff is contained somewhere within all these budget documents. And it's very difficult when they come to you and say, God, we've got these key issues, and you try to talk to staff, and, oh yeah, well, we're looking at that. And long story short is they often never get addressed in a proper way. Meet and confer gives you a structure for doing that, and it gives accountability with that. But again, all of it lies eventually with your guys' final decision making. That's important. So how does it work? So depending on, sometimes it's each year, maybe sometimes it's every other year, depending on how you structure it. The groups get together with management, and you go through some proposals on what some of the things are that the firefighters or any other employee groups want to talk about. One thing that's important to note is that the Firefighters Association brings a lot of resources to the table, okay? If any of you ever see my friend Tom Belshey at the League of Cities and Towns, he and I are on speed dial. Why? Because he knows that we have to work together. In fact, the resources we bring to bear do more to protect our cities than most folks often even realize. We call each other all the time because we have a lot of resources to bring to bear. The pension reform was a perfect example. Without all that collaboration, that would have never gotten accomplished, okay? We've helped a lot of cities with a lot of different challenges, OPEB obligations, PSOB obligations, things like bringing in deferred comp plans that are less expensive, okay? That's an option for you guys right now. Lots of different solutions in those ways. And by the way, not all employees may choose to want to participate in this process, and that's okay. This does not, by any stretch of the imagination, create any closed-door policies. If management has an open-door policy, they can communicate with anybody at any time. None of Meet and Confer stops any of that. It doesn't close any communications. But one important thing to note is that you sort of already have Meet and Confer in a way from a legal perspective. And what is it that I mean by that? Many, many years ago, the Arizona legislature passed a law called ARS 231411. And let me just read this instead of summarizing. Public Safety Employee Organizational Rights. Public safety employees serving in any city, town, county, or fire district in this state have the right to join employee associations which comply with the laws of the state and have the freedom to present proposals and testimony to the governing body of any city, town, county, or fire district and their representatives. A person shall not be discharged, disciplined, or discriminated against because of the exercise of these rights. So the point to that is that they already have the right to come here and make presentations to you all. What Meet and Confer does is it gives a structure to that. Because if there's a myriad of issues that the employees are having that they want to be considered by your city government, allowing them to meet with staff and work on those things ahead of time before they're brought before you is an important element. Otherwise, they're stuck coming to this council chamber, pulling a blue card and going, hey, we want you to hear about this, or trying to meet with you privately. Not always the best way when you're talking about some pretty complicated issues. One analogy I like to use is imagine a planning and zoning case, okay? If Brian Jeffries owns 1 acre of dirt here in Sierra Vista, and I want to bring some changes to that. I want to upzone it. I want to make it commercial. I want to, bring in some different property, what have you. I have an opportunity to come meet with staff. Staff will talk with me and give me some thoughts and ideas about, what's their general plan, okay? And from there, I can eventually maybe bring this before your Planning and Zoning Commission. And from there, I can eventually, working with staff, working with the neighbors, trying to get input on what I want to do with my property, eventually bring it to the city council. This is the same thing. This is a process that allows for input, collaboration before something eventually becomes for the council. And that accomplishes a couple things. One is it helps the employees become more educated along the way, but it also helps bring a structure when it comes before all of you, instead of trying to just hear about it while Chris is trying to talk to you on the side, have a coffee with you, or trying to come here and pull a citizen speaker card. That's a hard way to bring your issues to the fore. Again, all parties are expected to work together. Oops, sorry, that's a duplicate. So what are some of the advantages of the meet and confer? First of all, management can effectively address a variety of issues with diverse employee groups. Employees are not a one-size-fits-all in any city or any organization. That's just how it is, okay? It also allows some flexibility for economic changes. I'm going to talk a lot about that in just a minute. That's a really important element, especially if we go through downturns. And it's a conduit for employee-employer communications. But here's something that's interesting about it. It significantly expands employees' understanding of budget and policy issues. I'm going to say it again. It expands employees' understanding of budget and policy issues. So at the bottom of this slide, I also add that improves leadership development. As Chris mentioned, I just retired. I had a retirement party a week ago. It was a great time. A lot of people there, and there were a lot of fire chiefs in that room, a lot of them. About 80% of those fire chiefs at one time were 3 or 4 or 5-year firefighters sitting on the meet and confer process representing their fellow firefighters, learning more about the budget, learning more about how procedures work, learning about some of the challenges management has. And I'm quite proud of every one of them, because they didn't just wait until they had 20 years on to become a deputy chief and suddenly had to start learning that stuff. Going through this process, I think, is one of the best leadership development tools we have, because you're getting young people involved in their organization to start understanding these things. And I'll be honest with you, I was there. It takes courage to sit across from a deputy city manager or the finance director or the HR director when you have 3 years on the job, kind of going back and forth about policies and things. But boy, you're teaching the next generation how the organization really works. So on top of that, it also increases transparency. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, if I'm one of your constituents and I say, I want to know exactly what a firefighter makes, I want to know exactly what procedures they have. Well, if I walked into City Hall, went to the city clerk, and I said, I want to know these things, could someone provide that for me? Boy, that's a pretty complicated endeavor, right? You might show me your pay scales over here. You might show me these HR policies here. Contained within the fire department standard SOPs are over here. And I'm trying to get an idea. I go to HR, well, tell me more about their benefits package. Tell me more about their health care. Trying to understand all this. That's both complicated for one of your constituents to understand. It's complicated for you guys to understand. But when you move all that into an MOU, it's very easy to understand. It's all in one place. Usually maybe a 20 or 30 page document, give or take. And that provides a lot. Number one, you could hand one of your constituents one of these MOUs and say, you want to see exactly what the employees get and what the procedures are, et cetera? It's right here. You can read it, and it's very simple, okay? Number two, cities often, in my view, probably spend a little too much on consultants to do pay studies and pay comparisons. Now, they're necessary in many cases to look at what the market is providing, but I can tell you, when it comes to the firefighters, all you got to do is pick up the MOUs from your local other fire departments, because most of all of them have them, and just go page by page and do direct comparisons. Any one of us could do that in about a half hour to an hour. It's very easy because it's so simplified. And again, it's very transparent. It's not buried in all the annals of city stuff, right? So I want to also talk about disadvantages. Well, it does provide some additional responsibilities for management. Yes, they have to take some time. Yes, they have to sit down and spend some time with the employees going through policies. Yes, they may have to say, you know what, that's a different idea and that's something we want to implement. Okay, we may have to open another payroll time slot for that. Or maybe we're going to have to put some time through the finance director into doing a little more research on this request. Or maybe HR will have to do a little more research on this particular policy or what have you. That is true. That is, if you're looking at different things, sometimes that's an expanded role for management that they may not always want to take on. Sometimes they can take more time. Occasionally it can put, some decreased demands on payroll, benefits administrations, et cetera. But, the biggest thing we're all quite familiar with is it's change. It is change. And we know how some of us are sometimes about change, right? Let me shift gears here for a moment. I get asked this a lot. So I don't get all this. We're a right-to-work state. We don't do a lot of this stuff. It's really important because not everybody understands what that really means. And the bottom line is the only thing that right-to-work means for the state of Arizona is that nobody can be forced to join an employee association. That's it. If somebody, say one of these firefighters here says, I don't want to be a part of the Firefighters Association, the professional firefighters of Sierra Vista, nobody can make them. That's all that means. It does not prohibit us for doing exactly what we're talking about, which is being confer. All it means is that you're free to join or not join. That's it. Doesn't mean anything more, doesn't mean anything less. Meet and confer in no way, shape, or form forces anyone to join an association, and it's perfectly legal in a right-to-work state, which is why we've been doing it for so long. Okay? So who else uses meet and confer? Well, like I said, this is not a complete list that you're looking at here. It's a lot that I could fit on this slide without making the font far too small for my eyes. But I've been involved in passing 33 of these in cities, towns, fire districts, you name it, throughout the state of Arizona. And one important thing that you're going to see when you look here, you're going to see community college districts, school districts, fire districts, cities, towns. The majority of areas that have full-time employees in the state of Arizona have meet and confer, and many more to come. And so this is not a novel concept. It's used very successfully throughout the state of Arizona. So I want to give some specific history on some very positive results, and I was involved in some of these in particular that particularly proud of. We just went through the Great Recession not all that long ago. And during that time, I worked with several cities who were very much planning on laying off employees and employees throughout the city. And the people generally who were excluded from those layoffs were our people, the public safety folks. However, what was a terrible thing to go through, but yet an enlightening one as well, were all the amazing ideas that came through meet and confer of ideas that management never contemplated. Management in many of these cities had a plan, including brownout fire stations. It included laying off employees, cutting of benefits, all kinds of things of that nature. But we went through several of these meet and confer processes, and I'll never forget one of the most memorable periods of my career. We had a meeting with all the employees, and we had over 300 of them show up to our public safety training facility with all kinds of great ideas about how to save the city money. Not a single person got laid off, thanks to a lot of those ideas. People were willing to give up voluntary pay cuts. They were willing to do anything because they cared about their service. Meet and confer is how we process that. Otherwise, it didn't mean management's ideas were bad. I'm not saying that. But there were a whole lot more that we were able to interlace and bring them, both sets of ideas together to form a plan that actually ended up being a better one. We've also, I already mentioned, we've brought some employer savings in a lot of our benefits plans. I'll give you a specific example. One thing that's a real challenge for police officers and firefighters is that we retire younger because it's a younger person's sport, as I always call it. Well, that puts our folks at a real disadvantage because they have a retiree health care problem. Retiree health care is very expensive, and they end up spending all their pensions just trying to have health care. Well, we as an association have a health care trust that we have built for them that they can participate in. That's a benefit that we can bring to the city that you may not normally have, okay? Social Security savings, that's a detailed topic. And as I already mentioned, the leadership development that comes along with working on these issues. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You guys will have a copy of my presentation, and so, but it has quotes from a lot of officials I worked with over the years. This is council member from Goodyear, city manager, former city manager from Tempe, city manager from Chandler, Glendale, Gilbert, Lake Havasu and Bullhead City, Tempe, Phoenix. I've got Mesa. I've got a lot of them, and you know, you can read them on your own. One thing you'll notice is that a lot of them are a little older. I haven't actually done one of these presentations in a while because frankly I'm running out of places to do it because most everybody else is doing this. But I have long lists of more of those if you ever want them. And what often happens is that, you know, I'll have a council member or a mayor who may at first been a little trepidatious about it, but then they pass it, and then 2 or 3 years later, they're like, yeah, that ended up being no big deal. And that's sort of the quotes that I ended up getting from us. And one of them from Vice Mayor Kruger was like, you know, you told us that this wasn't going to be that difficult, and you told us it would bring a lot of positives. And she said, and you were right, and I like that. So you'll see a lot of that in those quotes if you take a moment to read them. Shifting gears yet again, like anything new, it takes training and it takes preparation. There's an organization, a wonderful organization called the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service. And they will do training for your city to go through this process for free. Not a nickel to this organization. They will take you through it. That is, they're a federally funded organization. This is what they do for a living. They enjoy it, and they do a really good job at prepping everybody, both labor and management, for the process. Training is no cost to the organization, okay? Before I summarize and wrap up, my understanding is I'd heard that y'all had brought in an attorney to talk about this recently, and Mr. Pierce is actually a friend of mine. I know both him and his dad. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I like Justin a lot. He's a friend of mine. But what attorneys will often try to tell a city is that the city's going to have to spend a lot of money on attorneys to do that, and that is frankly a lot of nonsense. If you're using attorneys to do this process, you're getting it all wrong. This is about an organic process for labor and management within your city to work together. And if you read any of the MOUs in the state of Arizona, they're plain language. There's not a lot of legalese in there. They don't ever go to court because the final decision making is on you all anyway. So the language that has been proposed is language that has been used in cities all over the state of Arizona. It's been vetted numerous times. I believe your city attorney would easily know how to implement it within the scope and frame of your ordinances and resolutions. So, you know, with all due respect, you know, someone who gets paid to do labor relations would certainly want to sell you on the idea that you need a lot of lawyers to do that. It's just not true, okay? I'm not getting paid anything to be here other than Chris bought me lunch. So I will tell you, I've done meet and confer for a very long time, and we've never used lawyers to do any of it, okay? I hope I didn't step on any toes with that statement, but I wanted to make sure I addressed the issue. So let's summarize. Meet and confer does not abdicate your local decision-making by any stretch of the imagination, okay? It provides increased transparency in the employment relations and government. Strikes or any kind of job actions and all that are strictly prohibited right into the language, so that's not even a consideration. Nobody has to join an association if they don't want to. It has a proven track record right here in the state of Arizona of success, of helping organizations be successful. And you can have training and preparation for it for no fee whatsoever to the organization. And I always throw this in. I snuck out of the change seminar because I'm too unique for that stuff. It's change, you know. Every organization goes through change. So anyway, I try to throw a little humor in there. So with that, Mayor and Council, you've indulged me a lot of time. I really appreciate all of your time. I also appreciate your service. I've sat on that side of the dais. I know what it's like, and so thank you for serving your community. And I'm here to answer any questions for you.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments? Yes, sir. Okay.
wants to go first? I don't care.
I have a lot. Go
I
ahead.
got a lot too. Not a lot. I mean, I just want to hear some. You know, I had the pleasure of sitting through some of this 4 years ago when I was running for council 5 years ago, and I've been pondering in my head. Okay, what are we talking about? What's the underlining? Is there an issue we have to address? Is there an issue going on within city staff that we're not seeing and not bringing to our attention? And I have to commend you. I appreciate you clearing some of that up. But I do have questions, and you're great. Glad you came down. Chris, you're great. Glad you came down. I'd like to talk to the youngest fireman or youngest member of the association in the room today. Y'all know who that is?
They're all comparing birthdays.
I know. The youngest, not age-wise, youngest on the force. That makes it easy. I knew it was. Come on up here real quick, young man. I'm gonna ask you several questions. Because Brian's done this a lot.
Sure.
I mean, his resume is well written, well in front of us. Why'd you join the Service Fire Department?
Well,
Quick version.
all right. I moved down here after leaving the corporate world. I worked in healthcare for a long time, and I'm a hunter. I was hunting with some people in another charity organization that happened to be firefighters here. One's a battalion chief, one's an engineer. Got to really know those guys, like those guys, and they sold me on the fire service, and Sierra Vista was the only place that I ever applied.
Did you look at the benefits and everything provided already or beforehand, or?
I sure did. I was self-employed after leaving the corporate world, and that was a big motivator for me as well.
Okay, two more questions. Easy
Yes, sir.
ones. What's meet and confer mean to you? Don't give me what's on this paper. You joined the Sierra Vista Fire Department for a reason. You looked into everything. What's meet and confer mean to you?
I think meet and confer, to me, it's just open lines of communication where if there was an issue, and I'm not saying there is, I don't have an issue that I can think of. I really enjoy my job. If there was something that were to come up, it's an open line of communication. I've worked in the corporate world. I've been in management. I've had just under 200 employees under me. I know what it's like, to be at the top and also at the bottom and not feel heard, or maybe you need an issue or just something pushed. So that's what it means to me. I think it's important. I think it's important for everybody here.
Okay.
Yes,
And then one last question, then a comment. What have you heard about the Employee Council and what this purpose is?
So I heard about the employee council. It's interesting that the email was pushed out right when we were going for meet and confer. I've heard from people who are on the employee council, not just Chris. There was one incident in particular that was told to me. I wasn't there. I don't recall the exact specifics of it. But they were discussing an issue for, I think, 2 months, was it? With the employee council. And whoever was in charge of the employee council at the time said, I don't know why you guys are still discussing this. It's already been decided. So unbeknownst to the employee council, a decision was made, and they spent about 2 months talking about it, even though the decision had already been made.
I appreciate you answering my
Yes, sir.
questions. Appreciate you being here tonight. And for everyone here tonight, I appreciate what y'all do. I have other questions, but I'm going to let it go around the room first before I marinate and come back. But thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Just some comments. So first of all, obviously the participation here shows a lot, right? How important it is to you, and I want you all to understand that everybody up here knows, obviously, how important this is to you. People are here in numbers. Anytime we have anything that's discussed and people are in numbers, they're passionate about it. So it's good to see that people are here for this. It's good to hear both sides. Obviously we hear our legal side and your side. Which is good. And I think everybody here needs to hear both sides. It's good. All the information we can get. I've never gone through this before, so the more information I know, the better. And I just, just being me, I get out and talk to people, and I've been talking to people from other places to see how it's worked for them. And you point out a lot of those same things I found myself in my own little information seeking. The biggest thing, like you say, paying members or not, are represented in this process. So we're fortunate in this case where that's easy math, because for the most part, it seems like everybody here, plus some EMS people, are on are members of the union anyway, so there's no us versus them in this scenario. And it doesn't mean we're giving away the farm to anybody, it's just the council still votes. That is still the process. Nothing's changed there. So the MOUs are still voted on by the council, just like anything else. So that's not a change, which is good. And also, people I've talked to, I asked them the first question, have you ever gone on anything, arbitration or impasse? And nobody has done that yet, which is, you know, it has to be in there. I understand why it's in there, but it's good to hear that it hasn't gone in there because it goes to a council vote anyway, before that even happens, which was good for me to understand. Another thing I've talked to other people and they said, when you do an MOU, do it in a non-election year to keep it non-political whatsoever. Even it helps out even better to be non-political with it, to do in an off year, odd number years. MOUs 1 or 3 years. That way, it's not a political cycle. That way, it's no way tied to an election by anybody. Which I think that's a good. I think some cities that do that, that's not a bad idea. From talking to them, and anything that's positive for employees, more educated budget and policy. I mean, just sitting in my position, those books that we get to try to figure all this out. You know, just the firefighter piece of the pie of that is a lot. So anybody that's more educated, obviously that makes better employees. Obviously for us. We talk about transparency all the time and how to better provide that to our constituents. And I like that you hit that point because we're always trying to find ways that we can put stuff out there to make it transparent. Here's where the money goes. Here how the policies are. And the fact that an MOU would provide that, which I think we are not providing right now, is policies in one place. You know, policies are there's a lot of policies in our city. And more importantly, for people that work different kind of hours, different kind of shifts, like Chris said, we try to say everybody's a city employee, he's a city employee, he's a city employee. But are they? And how do we treat them like that if they are kind of different when it comes to our fire and PD guys? They're not the same, right? Now, we have to pay everybody the same across the board. That's just how we run our city. And unfortunately, other cities can throw bonuses out and things like that and poach our firefighters and PD, which we're seeing the Valley doing, and I don't blame them. Right, but this kind of I like the fact that you said the MOU kind of lays it all out there. It's a simple document. Yes, it's going to take some work to get there, but I think it's work that sounds like it's needed from a lot of the feedback I get when it comes to just policy. We talk about all the time. We need to fix our policies. We need to fix them. We need to get to that. This will do that, I think, and it would be pretty cut and dry. The 457 and 401 plans as well. I'm talking to people here. The fact that we're not doing that already and not saving money, that doesn't make any sense to me either. So I like the part of that you brought that up as well, because that should be something that we're doing from day one, with or without this. And I appreciate the comments from the employee council, because just from sitting in our position, we can talk about it all day. Oh, let's give you guys an employee council. Let's bring it back an employee council. But everybody I talk to, I'm trying to, what does that mean? What does that do for you? What does it not do or not do for you? To the fact that to hear from the actual employees that are brave enough to talk about it, I really, really appreciate that, because it really gives us a different perspective. We can put it on planning all day about this employee council, but if it's not going to work for you and it's not what you need, then why would we even do it? I think that was it. I appreciate you guys coming and speaking and just clarifying up, you know, because the actual, when it comes to this MOU, I mean, the people that actually, you know, what's more important to me is hearing from somebody that's actually sat a day on an apparatus, not somebody that never has before in their life, to tell us, oh, it's all doom and gloom. Here's how much it's going to cost you. Here's how much blah, blah, blah. That's fine. We need it on both sides, like I said from the beginning. But any employees, it's important for me to hear their side from the lowest level, from the youngest firefighter, like Mr. Benning said, all the way up to the top. Because like with any organization, not that Chief does a bad job. Chief does a great job. But Chief answers to his boss, right, to our city managers. And then they have battalion chiefs, you have captains, and then you have all the firefighters all the way down to the lowest level, right? Their voice needs to be heard, and I want to make sure that they know that it's always heard either way. And I think this will provide that for them. It's kind of how I take it, knowing that their voice is heard. And I also like how you started out to say, this isn't, we're not doing this because we're mad. There's nothing like, you know, adversarial going on. There's no us versus them. It's just a policy that, obviously, a long list of people in Arizona that are already doing this and have been doing it for a while. I understand why you pointed that out, because it definitely makes sense for those locations that are already doing it. And I really appreciate all your time you put into the slideshow. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Any more? Sir, also, thank you for coming down. Thank you for your time, the presentation. Also, I think we have a mutual friend, probably Alvin House.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Very, very good man.
Absolutely.
So, and he also, I've been talking with him as well,
Yeah.
about how, the process, good, bad.
He knows it well.
Oh, yes, he does. He does very, very, very well. So thank you, sir.
Mayor and council, thanks for your hospitality today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Brian? Chris?
Thank you. I've got a couple other individuals. I wanted to try and give some more perspective on this topic. And the next person I was going to invite up, the reason why I see him important into this topic is it's Fire Chief Jim Tucker from Rincon Valley Fire District. And with him, I sit on their governing board, like you sit here for the city, and to get his perspective, they're fairly new into this process. And I asked him to speak today on how it's helped their organization. They're just out of the suburbs of Tucson, as you see the fire station going down I-10 and Vale, and they're the same size. I mean, now granted, they're a fire district, and all those differences kind of their financial, where they generate their money, but the process of the meet and confer is exactly the same. So I just wanted to introduce Fire Chief Jim Tucker and get his perspective on how it helps their organization.
Welcome, Chief Tucker.
Thanks, Chief.
Mayor and council, thank you for listening to me today. It's hard to follow up Brian's stuff, so I'm probably only going to be up here about 2 minutes with just to give you my perspective on the meet and confer. Like Chris has said, Rincon Valley Fire District has been doing this for probably about 3 or 4 years now. We're a relatively small fire district. We have 2 fire stations. We serve just under 20,000 district residents and approximately 14,000 residents outside of our fire district that we provide ambulance transports to. So I brought our meet and confer agreement with me, and I'm happy to leave it if you want to see it. There's really only 5 statements on our meet and confer. Essentially, it says that I agree that I'm going to meet monthly with my union leadership group. I'm going to report on my meeting with my union leadership group to my fire board and let them know what we're talking about. And it gives the union group an opportunity to address the fire board in the event that we don't agree with something. So from my perspective, some of the benefits for this is it removes the us versus them mentality. It's something that I've been trying to do within my organization. By all means, my organization is not perfect. We've had an us and them mentality for a while, and for the last 3 years or so, I've been trying to drive that out of our organization, and I'm just about there with shifting that culture. It provides a cooperative relationship between the union group and the management. For us, it has not had a financial impact. Anytime that we're going to adjust policy, it has to go to our legal counsel anyway. And we've only adjusted, I don't know, maybe 5 policies since. So there really has been no financial cost to us. Those policies needed to be revised anyway. It actually helps me because when the union would like to change a policy, oftentimes I'll put it back on them and say, okay, I see what you're saying. I may not necessarily agree with it, but go do some research and get back with me on what exactly it is you're wanting to do, and then we can talk about it at that point. So my firefighters have lots of great ideas. I've got no problem telling them, all right, go get me some more research, and I also don't have a problem telling them no sometimes. The great thing about the meet and confer and meet and monthly is issues are taken care of at the beginning. When we revise a policy or a procedure, they get buy-in, we get their buy-in because they get input. If they find something that they don't agree with, they come back and say, hey, chief, we don't like this, that, or the other thing, and then we'll talk about it. And sometimes we'll change it, and sometimes we won't. But there's a mutual agreement there, and at the end of it, they'll understand the why as far as why we're not changing something. But also, the other way around is I'll understand their why on why they want to make something different. And like Brian and Chris said, it just lays out the future expectations. So if you get a new mayor, you get a new council, you get a new fire chief, there's a document in place that says, hey, these are the expectations. We expect you to get along with your people. And that's really it. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions, comments? Thank you, sir.
All
Thank you,
right.
Chief.
Thank you,
Chief.
And just one more individual wanted to speak. One of the sweetest ladies I know, former council member Gwen Calhoun.
Good afternoon, Ms. Calhoun.
Good afternoon. Did he say sweet? That would surprise a lot of people. I had Mr. Mayor, city council members, staff. It's good to see you all again. It looks weird from this side of the podium.
It's weird seeing you over there.
Yeah. I had a lot I wanted to say, but Brian said all the stuff I was going to talk about. That's a joke. But what I did want to say when I understood this was going to happen was it reminded me, and it takes a lot for my memory to kick into gear, but back in the late 70s, early 80s, when I was a school nurse at Sierra Vista Public Schools, I had the opportunity to actually meet and confer with the management of the school system as a school nurse and for the school nurses. And what was really important about that was we weren't connected at that time to the Teachers Association. So it was really wonderful to be heard. Now, I know that may not be the same situation with the firefighters, but I heard several times folks mention to be heard was really, really important. To not only be listened to, but also to listen. And then several others have talked about how much you learn just being involved in the process. So I really think that's very important. And, Also, what was really important to me at the time was it helped us as nurses to build really positive relationships with management at the school system. And I don't know how many of you were around at that time, but those kind of things were important, and I think they still are important. In addition, I think it's really important for the community to have the opportunity to see that kind of collaboration between our firefighters and whatever other department is involved, and our city management, the city council, and the staff, because it creates that kind of positive, we can all work together and we can do this. And so, also I wanted to encourage council to take another look at that list of advantages that Brian has in his presentation. I hadn't seen that before, and I think it really pointed out the positives of us all working together, the firefighters and the staff working together to achieve a goal that really, in the long run, is going to benefit the community. Not just the firefighters, not just the city, but the entire city, meaning the staff and the council, but the entire community. So let me take a quick look, and I think that covers everything I needed to say. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's about all I have. Anybody that was going to speak. I just want to leave you with one thing. Regardless of what the outcome is here, the firefighters of Sierra Vista will continue to do our job the best that we always do, and we always will do that. Regardless of what happens here tonight or whatever decisions are made, doesn't change what we do for our community. We'll continue to do it at the highest level. So with that, thank you, Mayor, City Council, City staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris, for putting all this, bringing for the documents. Thank you to our firefighters, first responders, for showing up. It's obvious how important this is to you, and just thank you for your service, all the things that you do. We are proud of you. Thank you. Couldn't say thank you enough. So with that, any more questions, comments?
I have a
Last
comment,
alibi.
really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go.
I want to thank you all for being here. It does say a lot that you took your time and you came out here, and it shows that. And I appreciate everybody sharing what they shared today, and a lot of the comments that were made. I think we're very legit comments and stuff. So I just appreciate you coming out and sharing that. It gives us a lot to think about. Thank you.
Any more? Go down to item C, reports on recent trips. All right, future meetings.
She got report on a trip, I think.
No, I didn't go on that trip, but no. I just wanted to say the culture diversity meeting is right after this at 5 at the library. And we did the meet and greet at the chamber yesterday, and we had about 30 people show up to speak with us.
Yeah.
So that was really good.
It
So
was pretty good.
that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Not a problem. And we also have Citizens Police Academy tonight at 1800,
5:30.
5:30. That we have to
I
do
think
that.
that's what my.
Chief said, yeah, sure.
It's the
Say
association.
so.
Yes.
It's
the
association.
Police Academy
so it's
Association.
Association, got it.
a- so, yeah.
All right.
Parks and Rec is 5:30 tonight. So
Parks and Rec's 5:30. All right.
ain't gonna make it.
I understand. Got to go pick up the dog. All right. Future discussions. Ms. Yarborough?
Thank you, Mayor McCaw. We are entering the busy season for your work session, so got a few things on your list for March 21st. We're going to start budget presentations a little early and bring you revenue and debt and go over what we're looking at budget-wise in that respect. We also have the Fab Avenue concepts to share with council and go over. We have a presentation by the Sister Cities Association and likely your council handbook or commission handbook and council guidelines.
Excellent. Comments? Discussion? Oh, with that, all right, we're down. And so, another discussion, comments? We'll adjourn for, yes, sir.
I noticed an email hit my box this morning from Congressman Siscomani, Chief of Staff, Becky Freeman. Are we going to be pursuing as a city any of those opportunities? I don't ever recall a previous congressperson making that offer, although I know those federal monies are available. So maybe Chuck could speak to that?
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, Mr. Johnson, members of the council, obviously, we had a lot of grant requests built into this year's budget. Some have been successful, some have not. But at least we were prepared with applications already for a lot of these. And what we're trying to do is go through the criteria that have been set forth. And we also receive requests from the two senators as well. So, but Representative Siscomani is very important to us since he sits on the Appropriations Committee at the House.
Absolutely.
So we're very aware of that. So, in fact, we were just talking about that before the meeting tonight, and Victoria was going through the federal criteria by which some of these grants could be filed under. So the answer is yes, we will be pursuing and we will be making submittals.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
A request for future discussion. I would like to have like a work session where we have a presentation, kind of breaking down the Schneider Electric project. I don't
Second that.
Understand a lot. I know that the first one, did a lot of great things. The second one here is there's a lot more going on. And so when for the benefit of the public and for us up here, sometimes when people say things, I can only be like, it's gonna be great. So many, I would like to be able to understand it better and to have a breakdown of that, and to also show the benefits that the initial one did as well, kind of breaking that down and kind of showing where that comes from as well. That way, we can all understand, Sierra Vista can kind of understand it better and why we're doing it and how it will benefit us.
Right. Yeah, Member Councilmember Landry, timely request. We just had update meetings with Schneider, so we have all the schedules and projects, and should be relatively easy for us to put something together for you. And we'll probably do that even next work session. So
That would be great.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Along the lines of the park updates, things like that, our bathroom situation at all the parks, right? I'd like to see our issues that we're having, maintenance-wise, right? If it's vandalism, all the things that we have going on with our bathrooms in our park, and why they're not available, why they are, why they're locked, why they're, I know our hardworking people are there all the time trying to do stuff to mitigate stuff, but I'd like for the public to know all those issues that we're having, that we're dealing with. Because I know from talking to the people that are out there fixing it, but I'd like for everybody to know what's going on with our facilities when it comes to our public facilities, that we're trying to make our city a better place and our parks better as much as possible, but we're definitely dealing with some issues that we got to counter every day. So I would like some kind of presentation or included in that to say, here's where we're at, here's what it's costing us, here's the issues that we have, here's how we have to mitigate. Our plumbing issues, an update on that. We bought the bathrooms, tried to put them out there. We couldn't put them out there because of plumbing, so we got to move that until next fiscal year. Just kind of a real quick update on that situation, if we could.
Sure.
No other questions, comments? I'll call it adjourned.